someone who has dealt with clinical depression and anxiety since about the age of 12, I've had my fair share of bad days. But as someone who is now 34 years old, I've also learned what to do to turn those bad days around. So that's what I want to share with you today. 13 things to do to turn a bad day around. If that's something that sounds beneficial to you, please stick around. So for this list, I wanted to focus on things that have personally worked for me, and also things that maybe you haven't heard of elsewhere, because at this point, I think most of us already know to exercise, eat well, get outside, maybe journal, go to therapy, things like that. But I want to focus on maybe some more unique things that I do to make myself feel better when I need it. All right, so let's get right into it. Starting with number one, and this one is for my travel enthusiasts, and that is to watch travel vlogs. So a lot of you, if you're watching this, maybe that's something that you already do, but it's something that's pretty new for me. I didn't start watching vlogs, period, until the end of 2023, and I found that I find them very inspiring and motivating. So sometimes if I'm feeling kind of low, I will think of one of the places that I want to travel to, and I'll just look up Toronto vlog. I'll look for one that looks interesting to me, and as I'm watching the vlog, I start thinking about all the things I would actually want to do when I go to this place. So then I actually start planning that trip. I start brainstorming, what places would I want to go? What places would I not want to go? How can I figure out where the locals go? What things would I need to do to prepare, such as like visas or anything like that? Next thing I know, I'm no longer focused on how bad I'm feeling, but I'm excited about how awesome it's gonna be when I'm finally able to make this trip. Tip number two, and this one might be especially useful for people who maybe feel like they're in a rut in life. Maybe everything feels the same, there's no excitement maybe. And the tip is to try a new route. Trying a new route just gives you a new perspective. Sometimes we do the same things over and over and over in the same way, and next thing we know, so much time has passed and we've just been doing this thing day in and day out, and we didn't even realize that we maybe have slipped into this rut. So for me, this is something I do when I feel like life is just really monotonous. I'm extremely bored, and for whatever reason, maybe I can't try something else new. Maybe you don't have the budget, maybe your schedule doesn't allow for something new at the moment, but trying a new route is a very easy way to kind of get yourself out of your head and back into the world. So I think a lot of us have had that experience where we're driving somewhere and all of a sudden we've made it to our destination and we don't know how we got there. We just forgot the entire thing, and the reason that happens is because we've done the thing so often in the exact same way that we don't even have to think about it anymore. We're just on autopilot. So trying a new route forces you to actually pay attention again. You don't have the luxury of just being able to do the thing or get where you're going by just shutting off and getting into your head. You actually have to pay attention. Where is the street that I'm looking for? How far do I need to drive in this direction? And this works with all modes of transportation. If you're driving, I even do this when I go walking. So where I live, I usually go walking at the same place just because I feel like it's the best place to do it. And after doing it over and over, sometimes I really do just get super bored, but I'm so used to my route that I was actually very hesitant to walk in the other direction just because I'm so used to it. And one day I was actually forced to go the other direction because the usual path was flooded, so I had to turn back around, but I had to do the entire thing so that I could get enough of a walk. And I actually found it very enjoyable. The act of just going in the other direction, it almost felt like I was walking in a new place, which is kind of crazy to say that something so simple, like the exact same route that I take all the time, could feel new. Same thing for public transportation. When I was in college, I used to take the bus, and you know, I had my usual route. But every once in a while, maybe if I was early or I wanted to go grab a cup of coffee at a certain coffee shop, which was a little out of the way, I would take a different route, and it just felt like that little change in the routine was enough to kind of spark some energy for me. Moving on to number 3. This one is for my foodies. Try a new place to eat. So I am a diehard foodie, and I always love trying new dishes, new foods, but sometimes I've just really stuck to a routine for a while, and I realized that I haven't gone anywhere new to eat. I haven't tried any new dishes at home, and believe it or not, something as simple as that can actually bring excitement to me. Sometimes I just feel like the world is so small, and I already know so many things, like been there, done that. But truly, it is a vast place, and there is an infinite amount of things to learn. There's always something new. So if you are an adventurous eater, maybe go to the library, get yourself a cookbook from a certain culture, or just try a new recipe. Have fun with it. I feel like this is a good way to just bring some color back in when things have been feeling bland. And number 4, watch kids television or movies. This one has actually worked wonders for me, and I think the first time I did this was in 2020, which was actually unrelated to COVID. It was actually the summer of 2020, or maybe it wasn't fully unrelated to COVID. I think it probably did have a little to do with that. However, for me, it was mostly that I was dealing with a breakup at the time. We know how that can be. I was very much in my feelings. I was very stressed about other things. I had just finished a temporary position at a job, so I was looking for another position. I had that uncertainty that I was dealing with, and then I lost my significant other. So yes, I was feeling very emotional, and for the first time ever, for some reason, I guess I became curious, because for so many years I had been seeing memes or references to the show Bob's Burgers. So for whatever reason, I decided in July of 2020 to start watching it, and I fell in love. That is now one of my all-time favorite shows, but I never would have watched it. And I think what was happening is that I had so much happening in my head that I just couldn't deal with complex things. I didn't want to listen to more problems. There was already so much happening at that time. So I wanted some form of entertainment. I needed something that was just simple and wholesome, and I found that in Bob's Burgers. And I am not the type of person who normally would watch cartoons, so that came as a surprise to me how much I actually love that show. Another one that I've been introduced to fairly recently by my 17-year-old daughter is Bluey, of all things. I don't know how she ended up watching it, but she told me about it. I was curious. I think we saw something at the store that was that, and I asked her about it, and she happened to know, and she like fully recommended it. So we started watching it together, and I fell completely in love. Again, it was just truly so wholesome, and it was nice with so much chaos going on in the world right now for several years already. On top of all the personal things that we deal with, it was just nice to see something with such positivity that wasn't so saccharine. So if that's something that you feel like you're missing, maybe like some wholesomeness, is that a word? I definitely recommend either of those two, or I'm sure there are a ton of other kid shows. This also applies to kid literature, so kid books. Sometimes, again, when I'm very stressed, I love reading young adult novels. It's just maybe a little less taxing on my brain, but it still gives me some form of entertainment or a story to follow. My next tip is to go to one of your favorited spots. So I think a lot of people, they go like on Google Maps maybe Apple Maps, I'm not sure. And when you run into a place that you think you might like, you save it. I often do save them and then I end up forgetting about them. So when I actually have time to do something or go somewhere, I forget that that's there. So that's something that I really want to start focusing on. Whenever I have time to do something, go somewhere, I want to actually go to my favorited lists and make it a point to check out these places that I think I'll like. Again, it's a great way to introduce some novelty, get some new experiences in. All right, moving on to tip number 7, and that is to read about something you enjoy. Yes, you're probably thinking, I thought she wasn't gonna talk about basic things. Reading is kind of basic, but I'm talking very specifically here. So I'll give you my example. I love, again, I am a foodie, so I love to eat, I love to cook, try new foods, but I also really love reading about it. So with that example, I love the Taste Cooking website, which I guess is like an online magazine. Specifically, what I enjoy is their culture section, which is kind of, I guess, romanticized stories of something related to food. And I just really enjoy reading about it. So if there's something that you really like, whatever hobby you have, like gaming or working out, mixology, coffee, whatever it is, if this isn't something that you usually do, maybe check it out. And what I like about this is that I love food blogs, but sometimes whatever it is that I'm reading will prompt me to look up what it is that I'm reading about. So then I might end up watching like a vlog, which will prompt me to try a new recipe. And next thing you know, I've spent the whole day or at least a few hours doing things that I love. So excellent way to turn a bad day or a bad moment around. Number 8, plan a gathering. I feel like it has become a bit of a lost art. We live in this world now that's hyper connected, but I feel like we're probably less connected than we've ever been. I think we're just so busy that social activities, at least for me, can even start to feel like an inconvenience. Even though I know how important it is to socialize and how great it feels to do so. So I want to challenge you, if you've been feeling like you could benefit from a social gathering, initiate it. Be the person to plan the event. This actually was a game changer for me because there were often times when I felt like I wanted to do something, but I think I used to be someone who just kind of waited for things to come to me. Like I would wait for someone to invite me to something. But when I became the person to plan the dinner party or whatever type of get together, it was actually really fun because it gave me something to do. It was fun to bring together my friends who maybe didn't know each other and for them to start to form friendships, or just to be able to be with them at the same time as opposed to hanging out with this person today and this person tomorrow, being together. And anytime I plan something, my friends make fun of me because I love using e-bites. I make it kind of like an official thing and they're like, it's not that serious. And I'm like, yes it is, okay. So yours doesn't have to be all that. You could just invite a friend over for coffee or go out for coffee with somebody. Or even just inviting someone over to hang out with you at home while you're doing whatever it is that you have to get done at home, like your laundry or your dishes, whatever. I think at least it was very common for my age group to have friends over and just do what you were normally doing at home, except you have your friend there so you can like lollygag or whatever. Body doubling has become such a thing. Why not just actually have a real body there with you doing whatever it is that you're doing? And that brings me to my next one, number 9, and that is flip through a magazine. I count myself lucky enough to at least have been on the tail end of a period where magazines were appreciated. That was something else that was very common for me in my high school years. We'd buy the latest issue of magazine, go to each other's houses. We would just sit in bed for hours until we flipped through the whole thing. And it was fun because it was almost like the modern day conversation cards. You had something that you were looking at and it would prompt a conversation that you may not bring up had it not been in the magazine. All right, tip number 10. I I think this one's gonna make some people uncomfortable, and that is to scream. Okay, but hear me out. Screaming is a fantastic way to get rid of pent-up emotion and tension, and to just get that energy flowing again. Sometimes, I know for me, if I'm feeling extremely stressed or especially angry, where I can't like focus, I literally feel like in my body, like if something were blocked, like something's just not flowing. And so what I will do is find a place where I can scream, where I won't be bothering someone. Using a pillow in your room is great. That's what I do sometimes if I can't get away or whatever. And I just let loose. I scream as loud as I can, and I just feel so much better afterwards. It just feels like I sneezed or something. But I've heard people before say that sometimes they do feel like screaming, but they think it's like weird, or maybe that they shouldn't feel that way. But as someone with a background in mental health, I feel like we need to pay attention to all of those things that our body tells us, emotions or physical sensations. If you feel like screaming, it would probably be beneficial. As long as you're not hurting someone or disturbing someone, then I think it's a great strategy to use. In fact, screaming for me has the same effects as running. All right, number 11. I wouldn't consider myself a true enthusiast unless I gave this recommendation, and that is to take a dance class. And the reason that I make this suggestion is because, so I am an avid dancer. Is that a thing? You get my point. I absolutely love dancing. I take lessons as much as I can, which is not enough for me. But the reason I recommend it is because anytime I do tell someone that I take dance lessons or that I just go dance for fun, the most frequent reaction that I get is, oh my God, I've always wanted to try that. And I'm always like, well, why haven't you tried it? Classes abound in person and online. And I think one of the reasons maybe people don't try it is, number one, they don't want to do it by themselves, and they don't have someone who would be interested in doing it with them, so they just choose not to go. And if that is you, if that's your reason, let me tell you that that's not a good reason. And I say that because if you go to like their websites or the dance studio websites, you'll see that I'm pretty sure every single one of them says no partner required. And that's really true. Every class that I've ever been to, the majority of people show up by themselves. They're not with a friend. What you do is rotate with the people. So yes, you need a dance partner, but you don't have to bring your dance partner with you. Most people go by themselves and you partner up with them and you rotate. So everybody dances with everybody. Usually couples will stay together, but sometimes they'll also rotate as well. So don't let that intimidate you. If it helps, you can call and speak to the instructor, and they will probably give you a rundown of what the class is like. But go to a beginner class. I can almost guarantee that there's gonna be someone there that's also there for the first time. What I love about the dance community is that it's actually very welcoming. Like if you go to dance classes, I've always felt like people kind of, if they know you're new, they'll kind of like take you under their wing a little bit, and they'll kind of give you the rundown. It's just very nice. So if that's something that you're interested in, do not hesitate. Go look for a class, check it out. I promise you, you will be so glad that you did, and you might have a lifelong hobby. And that applies to any other thing that you're interested in doing. There are classes for like everything under the sun, it seems like. So look for a class. Don't put it off anymore. Do something that you love. All right, my next tip. And this is one that I do when I am feeling my worst. There are just times where I really do just feel shitty. And like there's nothing that I can do or that I have done that has been able to pull me out of that funk that I'm in. So when I'm feeling that bad, my go-to thing to do is to watch stand-up, because there's just a bodily reaction from getting a natural laugh that is hard to get from anything else. You know, like when we laugh, there's like crazy chemicals going on in your brain, and it's just so hard to simulate that. So if you need a hit of dopamine, watch some stand-up, either on TV, YouTube, or better yet, if you can go in person. And we have made it to my very last tip, and that is to start a YouTube channel. I am willing to bet that someone who is watching this video has had that thought at least once, if not more. I think it seems like most people who start a YouTube channel thought about it for like a really long time before they actually did it. So if that's you, do it. Start the channel. Do it right now. It takes like literally, I don't know, less than 5 minutes to actually start the channel. That in itself will give you a boatload of stuff to do that you're gonna have to figure out, and you're just not gonna have time to be bored or sad or mad or whatever. And if you're thinking, well, yeah, I've always wanted to, but what would I even make my channel about? That's not the point. Just start the channel, think about one thing that you actually feel like talking about in the moment, record yourself talking about it, and post it. You don't even have to edit it. You can if you want, but if you want to make something really easy, do that. All right, so those are my tips for how to turn a bad day around. A little bonus, and this is one that I got from my therapist several years ago, that seems obvious but nobody had ever told me, and that is to be okay with having a bad day. It's normal and it happens to everyone, and maybe you're not going to be able to turn your day around, but that's okay. You're allowed to have bad days. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're backsliding necessarily. That's often what I would feel like several years ago, that if I had a bad day, it just meant that I failed. Like, oh, I'm still depressed. No, it doesn't have to mean that much. You can have a bad day, you can have a bad moment, and you don't have to ascribe any more meaning to it than just that. So if you need to just sulk and start fresh the next day, do that. And remind yourself what life has to offer. Surround yourself by people that make you feel good, and if you don't have that at the moment, find those people. Find your people. I often felt empty. I would go out with friends, and I love my friends, but there was a time when I felt like I didn't have friends who had like my same interests. And not until I actually joined a dance team did I feel like, oh my god, these are my people, because we went bowling one time and I don't know what song came up, and literally all of us started dancing to the song at the bowling alley, and everybody was watching us like, what? But I think that's how you know when you are with your people, when you could just do what you love and it doesn't matter what else is going on around you. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope I gave you some new ideas. If I did, please let me know. And if you like this video, you might like one of these, so check them out. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.